What's up guys, welcome back to boostgumps. Pretty interesting video today for a lot of you most likely, but we've got ourselves another beautiful 4th generation, I suppose you'd say, Commodore VE Series 2 Calais V Wagon in lovely chlorophyll, this color is called. I'd have to say I reckon this is probably quite a rare car as far as the combination of it being a Calais V Wagon in chlorophyll. So absolutely lovely car. So this thing's actually here just for an exhaust. We have no intention of doing any tuning. We're not even going to unlock the ECU, but we are curious to see whether just a exhaust on its own makes any difference to these things without tuning to suit. So we want to see whether no other modifications, just an exhaust, extractors, full system, makes any difference to the power, how much difference it makes to the power. So we figure, hey, this thing's here for an exhaust. We just happen to have a dyno, so let's find out and make it a video, because I'm sure a lot of people would probably be pretty curious to see. First up, baseline, still got the stock exhaust on it at the moment, so let's see what power it puts down, and then we'll change our exhaust over and we'll check back in, see what power it picks up. Also, we had this doggo just rock up today. Just rock up, made himself at home, just chilling in the shed. Not sure how much you're gonna like this noise, doggo. But hey, you can stay. I'm happy for you to stay if you want to stay. Anyway, huge fan of this color. Honestly, I'm a big fan of VE/VF wagons as well. And it's a Calais. What's not to like about this friggin' thing? Like this, bloody supercharged. Oh, what a time. What a time it'd be. And look at that. About as stock as they come, boys and girls. Doesn't get much more stock than that, so. Alrighty guys, so there you go, bog stock as a rock. You can hear it's very quiet, you can hear tire noise and everything over everything else. So you can see here around that 270, 275 horsepower at the treads. So we'll see what happens when we just bolt an exhaust up and see if we actually make any more power without doing any tuning. Let's find out. Alright guys, so we're finally here with our brand new twin 2.5-inch X-Force exhaust system for this VE. We've been waiting for it for a little while. We had some issues with the freight company losing track of it, which is not uncommon for us out here. So we've got ourselves some 1 7/8" 4-into-1 collectors or extractors. Now, the reason we went for the 1 7/8" was purely for time constraints and stock reasons. So this vehicle, this VE being a totally stock 6-litre, it does not require 1 7/8" extractors at all. Ideally, we would have liked to get 1 3/4", but they didn't have any 1 3/4 in stock, and it was going to be a 4 to 6 week wait to get some. So the price difference between 1 7/8" and 1 3/4 was nothing. They were the same price. So for the sake of not having to wait 4 to 6 weeks for some extractors, we opted to just get the 1 7/8" for the fact that we could get them straight away. So that's why we're going 1 7/8". Just wanted to clear that up, that this vehicle does not require them at all. They're purely just for the sake of getting some soon. Now, it's a bit of a mismatch of a system now, because we've got 1 7/8" extractors going into a full 2.5-inch exhaust. But again, it's not going to affect the performance of this vehicle in any noticeable way, so we decided just to go this way with it. So we've opted for the full 2.5-inch exhaust system because, again, being that this is a totally stock litre, it does not need a twin 3-inch system. That, and the owner is particularly worried about it being too noisy. What he wants to achieve with this car is a nice sort of deep V8 rumble. He likes the V8 sound. but he doesn't want it to be obnoxiously loud. So we opted for 2.5 inch just to try and keep it a little bit quieter. We opted for the system with the center muffler instead of the center resonators to try and keep that noise down again. And we also opted for a 409 stainless. So 409 is a little bit softer than say 316 or 304. And we do find that it sort of takes a lot of that tinniness and that raspiness out of it. Sort of, it sounds a little bit closer to a mild steel exhaust almost, in that it's a bit more of a deep sort of sound. So we're a big fan of the sound of the 409. That, and it sort of cuts a little bit of cost out. So that's the system we're going with. It's finally here, so we'll get it in the car and we'll have a look at what it does. So it's nice to see on this system as well that X-Force looks like they've actually started to weld this dual flange up. We've actually had a few in that we had to tack weld these up because they were rattling together and creating an almighty racket. But it appears that X-Force has started to just do that now, which is really nice. And as you can see, we've got our twin rear mufflers as well as our center muffler in 2.5 inch 409. This thing should be a nice sort of a nice note and hopefully not too loud. Alright guys, so finally got all the old exhaust off. Had a very nice time trying to get it off. You know, these cars, they are fairly new, but you got to remember at this point they're actually 10, 12 years old. And if they haven't been touched ever, a lot of this stuff's very grown together and hard to get undone. So it was a bit of a task, and it did have lots, like heaps of issues with the plug leads, which is pretty typical of ones we've seen where it's been a very long time since the plug leads actually came off, and they start to grow onto the plugs, and you start to pull out the little inners that actually connect to the plug and that sort of thing. So given that they were so hard to go off, I thought we'd pull the plugs and have a look. And they are actual AC Delco plugs, which are not super common in Australia. Obviously these things came from the factory with an AC Delco plug, so a lot of dealership services, I suppose, would have been fairly common for people to use AC Delco plugs, but I wouldn't be surprised if those are literally the plugs that came in this thing from factory that have now done probably, I think this thing's done nearly 200,000 Ks. So that's pretty substantial. So definitely whacking a new set of plugs in it while we're here. Some new NGK plugs and putting the new set of plug leads on it as well, which we'll have to order, but just a little bit of maintenance. It is pretty typical, obviously, with a lot of these cars. Once they're out of the warranty period and they're not getting scheduled servicing by the dealership and that anymore, you do find a lot of people start to service these things themselves, which is fair enough, that's fine. But changing the oil and oil filter and doing an air filter and stuff, that's fairly common. Usually things like plugs and things like that would normally get done at a dealership service or a regular mechanic service, sometimes a lot of that gets overlooked by people who service their cars themselves. So you do see that quite a bit, that things like spark plugs will just get left because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But really they should be getting changed moderately regularly. So anyway, not to worry, we'll get a new exhaust in now and I'll order some plug leads and we'll put some new plugs in this thing. The other thing I will note is that we don't use the gaskets that X-Force provides. We don't particularly like the look of them. We just don't really like them. You really can't beat the OEM, GM, modular steel exhaust gaskets. These things are freaking amazing. They're awesome. You can't beat them. We sell them on our website. You can't get much better. We just put them on everything. So use them instead of what X-Force provides and get this big bad thing together. So these are the gaskets that X-Force provides. They're like a two-piece composite thing. I'm sure they would work fine, but I mean, we keep these in stock and we like them a lot better, so that's our choice. Alright guys, so you can see we've got our exhaust installed. As always, when putting long tube headers and stuff on these cars, getting the dipstick back in is a bit of a battle, but we managed to get it sorted. As you can see, we've got a couple of ring-in leads there. Got our new plugs. That's going to be fine until our new leads get here, which is going to be a few days. But for now, this thing's ready to hit the dyno again with our new exhaust on it. So let's see if the power is any different to what it was before. So you can see there just that initial burn of all the coating that's inside the exhaust because it's brand new, but this thing sounds great. I think we definitely nailed the sound of this thing. It's not loud, it's not obnoxious, but it's definitely got that nice V8 note. So we'll see what happens as these mufflers sort of burn their way in and get. I suppose it's worth mentioning as well that even when we do exhausts and do a tune on say like a cam package or something, we do find that it does take a little while for the mufflers to sort themselves out, and that we do find, you know, minor increments in horsepower, like they do get better after being run a little bit. The mufflers seem to, I don't know what the mufflers actually do, just whatever the packing in the mufflers seems to sort itself out and go harder, or whatever it does, and we do seem to find that they do make a little bit more power after they've been run a bit more. So that's worth noting, but you know, I do predict that we're not going to see a very big change in horsepower anyway, but it was more just an experiment for our knowledge and for you guys, and see if it makes any difference with no tuning at all. Righto guys, so the results are in and they are very surprising. Absolutely astounded with how much difference that actually made. Neither of us were expecting that at all. But as you can see, stock we were running it up that around pretty much consistently 270 horsepower. With our exhaust, you call that a consistent 305. So a good 35 horsepower gain. And as you can see, it's all over the curve too. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah, don't know what else to say. We weren't expecting that at all. But that just goes to show how restrictive the stock exhausts on these things must be, or are. As you can see, we're in shootout. It's unfortunately not the same day as the first test. We are on 2 different days, but we are in shootout mode, which is meant to sort of bring everything onto a level playing field and get repeatable results. So that sort of checks out. The other thing that sort of checks out, which is interesting for you all to note as well, which I'll put up now, if you have a look at our air fuel changes. So this just proves that it's not just fudging numbers or dyno anything. You can see here from our sniffer the difference in the air fuel. So this was the other day, completely stock on the exhaust, and as you can see with our exhaust we've ended up nearly a full AFR point leaner, which is not ideal at all. This sort of proves that even with an exhaust you really should get a tune. Obviously this has been done millions of times. Heaps of people have put exhausts on VEs over the radiator intakes and stuff like that and never had them tuned, never worried about it, and they all live. So obviously it's not too big of a worry, but this is much leaner than we'd like to see as tuners. It's not what we'd like to see in a tune at all. You know, we'd really like to tune this back down to where it should be. Even stock we find these a little bit leaner than we'd normally like, but that is quite lean. So that just, yeah, it proves that we have changed what the engine is doing as far as its volumetric efficiency quite a bit. We are getting a lot more air through this engine now. Now these things, obviously, the ECUs in them are great. They do a lot of closed loop fuel trimming. They have great knock control and stuff. Even stock, these things knock their head off. It's crazy when you chuck them on a dyno and put the scanner on and run them up. Everyone we've done that stock knocks. This thing's no different. It was knocking before. It pulls timing. That's what these waves are in the power graph. That's it, just compensating for knock. As you can see, these things from factory, the tunes on them honestly are just not that great. So what I was getting at anyways, these things are quite advanced in that the closed loop, all the trimming, all of that works. Cruise, that all works fine. Problem is that at in your power enrichment settings, or when you're at full throttle, that just goes off the raw values in the map. So that's not going to affect this. This is always going to be, this full throttle running will always be out and will be lean. So essentially that means that these things, even with an exhaust, you probably should get it tuned. I'd recommend 100%. So I'm going to put this to the owner of the car. Recommend that we're going to tell him that we recommend that we should tune it. However, obviously, being that so many of them have survived, it's probably not necessary. It really probably would benefit from it quite a bit. But it's crazy as well. That's just the exhaust. That's through the stock intake. So that's just how restrictive the exhaust was. The exhaust is obviously a restriction before the intake is. But yeah, that's pretty wild results for today. Was not expecting that at all. Anyway, guys, there you go. Proof's in the pudding. 35 horsepower consistent just on the exhaust system. That's wild. That's crazy. Was not expecting that at all. Anyway, obviously we've still got to wait for new tires for this thing. We've ordered new tires for it, so it'll have new tires on it before the owner takes it home. And obviously we've got to wait for those new plug leads to get here, which are on the way. So we've got a little bit of time for the owner to decide whether he would like us to actually tune it or whether he just wants to leave it as it is. Personally, I don't think it's going to be unsafe. I think the ECU will cope enough the way it is. I would like to see it tuned, but I understand it's quite a bit more money. So we'll just see what he says, but who knows, maybe we'll have another video on what this exhaust system can actually do when it's actually tuned properly, because that'd be a nice little experiment as well. However, I feel like if that's going to be the case, it might be on the new tires, so maybe not a repeatable result for the video. But anyway, that's enough for this video. Hope you've enjoyed. Hope you've learned something. We certainly have. We didn't think that was going to happen, so thanks for watching. As always, smash like, smash subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Peace out. See you. Bye.